Hi everyone, thanks for coming back on the series of my insights, perspectives, and ideas on the book by Napoleon Hill, Outwitting the Devil. This is the chapter two, and the chapter two is the title is "A New World is Revealed to Me." So basically, Napoleon Hill is kind of progressing on kind of like his achievement on some of the insights he had after finding what he calls his other self. So again, on chapter one, he basically said how he had this encounter with the other self, and on chapter two, he's basically uh, talking about some of the abilities that he had gained, or deeper insights, and let's call it like some of the features that he found through the other self. Again, we can go on about what he meant by it. I think it's a very spiritual concept as well, and Napoleon Hill has a lot of different layers to his writings about different stuff, and I think it's no different in this book. So again, progressing on and moving on, the other self. A couple of the things that Napoleon Hill said on after finding his other self was his kind of new idea or understanding in terms of faith. So it's interesting to see that uh, Napoleon Hill went on to basically look for um, so for funds for the project and the manuscripts that he wanted to publish. And the interesting thing about his idea on faith that really caught my attention was that he said that he could visualize the forthcoming money already in his possession. And it's interesting when you think about faith, and in case you guys already went through like something, and I'm pretty sure everyone went through at some point in time, that you really have faith in something. And when I mean something, I'm kind of like just for now, like not thinking too much about God or deities or anything like that. Just think about having faith on a goal that you were looking to achieve or visualizing it. And that's interesting to see how faith and visualization is something that's really connected, right? And like through some of my personal experiences, it really hits differently when you have a deep faith in something that you actually visualize the outcome and it comes to fruition. It actually happened, like me talking to a couple of other friends, and they experience the same thing, right? Like you actually, let's say you have a goal and you visualize it. It's it's different, right? And that's interesting how um like Napoleon Hill says that there are no words that can describe such faith experienced, right? And it is true. It's even hard for me to kind of try to put in words this kind of faith. But for now, what I can say is almost when you touch that level of faith in something, a goal, for example, you can visualize it, right? Like you're feeling the vibration that you have is just different, right? And that really comes to my mind a passage in the Bible, and again, of course, like my religious belief is a Christian background, and again, and it's in Hebrews 11:1 that says, "Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for and the conviction of things not seen." So basically, I mean, this passage in the Bible is trying to convey the idea of what faith is. So it is the assurance of things hoped for and the conviction of things not seen. So you have that conviction. You know the things that you're not seeing with your physical eyes, you're already seeing like deep in your mind, in your soul, right? And again, Napoleon Hill t- talks about the reliance on his other self, and this is where I'm still trying to wrap my mind around it, on what he is really trying to convey on the other self, right? That he says that like in times of difficulty, he relies on this other self in absolute faith. When, let's say, when he's reasoning faculty or him trying to think logically, he doesn't do the job for his actual needs, right? And then he basically taps into this power, this force, right? And again, um I think it's interesting because it's something that Andrew Carnegie tells Napoleon Hill, that some experiences they force men to turn within for the solution of their problems. So basically, you're almost looking inside yourself for solutions, or like in a higher level, or like when you go into like a meditative state to look for those solutions or for those insights, right? So I really think it's really interesting how this whole topic on how Napoleon Hill thinks of faith, or his new understanding on faith, came by him like meeting, let's call it like the other self. So it's quite interesting on that take of faith. So I'm hoping, at least with this insights, at least that gets you to a level of curiosity on this kind of faith that Napoleon Hill is talking about. And sometimes we actually have been through touching this kind of faith, but we're not even aware, right? So found this to be very interesting. The second point was what Napoleon Hill calls the seed of success. And it's super interesting that, quoting him, he says that I have also discovered that there comes with every experience of temporary defeat, in every failure, in every form of adversity, the seed of an equivalent benefit. So Napoleon Hill thinks that when there's like a temporary defeat or failure on what we see with our eyes, there's actually a seed, or there's something that you can learn from it, or there's even an equivalent benefit to it, which is, it's kind of hard to think about it, right? Like when you think about even like some deep stuff like tragedies, or some other stuff, like there's a seed of an equivalent benefit to it. It's hard to think about it, but when I think on a more lighter level, let's call it, it's about learning from mistakes, and kind of redirecting or creating new projects, or just getting the feedback from the failure as something that you can rebuild your plans, or just kind of like at least you got an answer that's not the path that you should go. So it's kind of like that I'm seeing this. I have a personal friend who's a very, I mean, he's a very spiritual person, and it's funny, he uses this like also on in his prayers, right? He was telling me that when like personal defeats or some hardships, or even when he's like counseling or talking to people, and when they're talking about like some deep issues, he actually goes into prayer and asking about the seed of the equivalent benefit to it, which is pretty interesting take on him looking. I mean, whether he's like talking to God, or he's just basically looking inside himself, trying to find the seed of an equivalent benefit, right? So that's pretty interesting. Um, and I think it's pretty interesting as well. And the other insight was about the value of give before getting. So I really like this, because Napoleon Hill basically is talking about when you have difficulties and you want to overcome those difficulties. One of the things you could do is basically kind of forget about your problems and go and help other people that might have greater problems, right? So that can help you sort of look that like it's not the end of the world where you find yourself, or of course just basically helping a brother that's in need, right? And I really think it's a very it's a very generous thing to do, and I would say it's one of the things that divine, maybe like in terms of like the purpose of our lives here on earth, is actually one of the things, right? One of the things is actually helping one another and kind of build and grow together. So I really like the way he put it, like on when you're facing, or when you're sort of taken by difficulties, like try to kind of forget about it and then move forward on like helping people, like do some other stuff. And the other thing that he talks about is concentrate upon purpose and forget about the plan when going to prayer. So if you read Think and Grow Rich, for example, that's one of the things he says. Like, you have a goal, and no matter how difficult it seems at your current stage in life, or the current circumstances that you're in, if you can focus on the purpose and forget about it, but obviously having that in mind, and the spirit inside you that you're going to achieve it, somehow those things will line up, or a plan will come up to you. Things will start to happen, or I mean, you can call it like the law of attraction, right? um, Things will start to happen for you to move forward, to go down on that purpose, right? So having the purpose in mind, or that definiteness of purpose, is something that's super important. And yeah, that really makes me wonder about having the purpose and moving forward, right? And of course, like, we're gonna go into what Napoleon Hill talks about prayer. So it's really interesting on his take in prayer. um like, it's interesting when you sort of search through a couple of different religions about being thankful and being grateful on what you have. And even for a non-religious person, or someone that, I mean, doesn't believe in, let's call it like, the spiritual realm, if you're just basically waking up every morning and you're just being thankful for what you have, or like just being grateful for your life, or just being grateful for small things, it actually changes your vibration, right? How you feel, like your emotions, your feelings, and you switch from being like miserable to someone who starts to be like happy in life, right? So I would say that gratefulness is really one of the key things about happiness, right? I mean, I personally am an advocate of people, of course, like having ambition in terms of like growing, trying to do better for their lives or improving their lives. Like, I don't think being grateful means you have to be passive, or just be, let's call it, um, just be someone that you don't want to evolve. Like, you can evolve and be grateful, and you can ask for more, right? And that's where Napoleon Hill touches, is basically appreciate the things that you were already given, like your vibration, like your vibe, your internal state changes completely, right? And that's a great thing to do, like in the morning, or when you're going to bed at night. I think it's super, it's fantastic to do this, right? And also, the great thing is on not being shy on asking for more or guidance. So let's say if you're praying to God, and don't be shy, or let's call it like the universe, or like in respecting your personal faith, but it's not be shy or of asking for more. Like, if you want to grow in life, you want to benefit more people, but also asking for guidance on decisions, right? you know Looking to, how do you move forward, how do you improve, how do you benefit more people, how can you be a better impact while we're here on earth, right? So I really like how this whole experience um, made Napoleon Hill have a deeper thoughts on prayer. And he basically classifies prayer as a release thought. So it's almost like you have a thought, and then you release it through prayer, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be vocal on your prayers, but also a silent prayer, right? It's basically you're giving the thought, you're releasing the thought for, God, infinite intelligence, universal power. And this is one thing that really got me, that he says, one's state of mind is a determining factor when prayer works as well as when it doesn't. And it really it really made me think about, again, a couple of passages in the Bible, but basically, when you go on a prayer, you go in faith. You have the state of mind of faith. That's a determining factor when a prayer works, or as well when it doesn't, right? So if you're not in the right state of mind when you go into prayer, um, that's actually a huge factor. So that actually makes me wonder if, even though prayer, we're basically releasing a thought, but it's almost like It's like a powerful tool that you have. It's like a power that you have inside yourself, uh, to move things, And basically, Hill says that he discovered that by to approach infinite intelligence or God or whatever you want to call it, by mixing his thoughts with faith. And again, I would trace back to what I believe in, which is, kind of when when and the Bible mentions that when you go into prayer, that you pray with faith, so you like knowing that you already received it. So it's that different level of faith that we spoke at the beginning of the book. Oh, sorry, at the beginning of the video initially, that Napoleon Hill is talking about. So when you mix those thoughts with faith, that's a great way to approach infinite intelligence, right? So I really think this was some great insights, and I'm still thinking and wondering through about prayer in general, but I really like how Napoleon Hill put it here. And then he goes to talk about the sixth sense, right? So Napoleon Hill says that faith basically opens your sixth sense, right? Where you can kind of communicate or commute with sources of power and information not available through the five senses, right? So I was going to say it's almost like faith being a key or being a device, but let's call it. I think key is a better it's a better analogy here. Faith being a key to enable you to contact, like information and power which is not available through your five senses, right? So it's like maybe like your intuition, where you capture different ideas or revelations, or maybe, you know maybe some, like, how can I say, like, the back in the time when the Greeks, they had the muses where they were inspired, let's say music, poetry, or whatever. It's almost like faith is the key for you to open yourself to be inspired by ideas, for example, right? And of course, that there are a lot of applications here, but just having that state of mind. So the state of mind is almost the key to that. So which is quite interesting. And then, the last part that really got me wonder, and I will be very frank with you guys here. Like, I all I know is that it's really deep on what Napoleon Hill said here, but I don't really understand right now. But I know there's something here, right? But I'll quote what he's saying. He says, he talks about a guardian angel, right? And he talks about, with the development of the sixth sense, there comes to your aid and to do your bidding. With the development of the sixth sense, a strange power, which, let us assume, is a guardian angel who can open to you at all times the door to the temple of wisdom. So, I mean, my my main questions here would be, what does he mean by this guardian angel, right? Um, I mean, we could use like a simpler analogy, but also, is there truly like a proper guardian angel? And what does he mean by opening to you at all times, right? It's not eventually, it's like all times the door to the temple of wisdom. I'll be very frank, it's deep. I don't fully understand it. I If I am, as of today, which is January the 23rd, 2023, what I think about when I think about this is almost like, um, when you have a faith, or when you're in the state of mind of faith, you will have access to higher information, or let's call the sixth sense, where you can receive and commute with source of power, but also that can open to you at all times the door to the temple of wisdom. The door to the temple of wisdom, what I think, could be like your subconscious mind, right? Where you have a lot of different information, like higher level stuff, inspiration. That's roughly what I think about it here, but I know there's a lot of more to it. I mean, I would love, if you have any ideas or insights about this, I would love to hear your comments down below.
If you like this video, like, subscribe, and of course, please comment. It would be great to read what you guys are saying, what you're thinking, and I'll be more than happy to respond, and we can chat from there. Thanks so